everyone, welcome to our video on enzymes. This is the first of 3 videos and you're going to get to know the basics of enzymes. Also, I want to apologize in advance for any cat purring that you hear in the background. I have my best 2 co-workers, Linus and Lucy, here with me, so if you hear purring, it's them. All right, here we go with enzymes. Well, do you remember from about a week ago what type of macromolecules are enzymes? What is that? Well, enzymes are a really special type of protein. They're, in fact, arguably the most important protein. Why? Well, they're a protein that's used as a biological catalyst. And you'll need to know that word, biological catalyst. Think catalyst. What is that? Well, it's a substance that makes reactions happen faster. So if enzymes are biological catalysts, then enzymes can make reactions happen faster. And you might be like, well, that's kind of interesting, right? But here's a little analogy with a Batmobile. Maybe some of you like Batman. So catalysts speed up reactions. Now, reactions would take place anyway, but enzymes speed them up. So there's a Batmobile, and eventually it's just like a normal reaction. It would cross the finish line eventually, that Batmobile would. And in a normal reaction, the reaction would take place, but it would happen eventually. But here's a Batmobile with an enzyme in it. And I know that enzyme kind of looks like Pac-Man, but you'll see that's a pretty good representation of an enzyme. But the Batmobile with the Pac-Man in it, much like a reaction with an enzyme added, will cross the finish line faster. It'll take place faster. So catalysts speed up reactions, just like in this funny picture, having the Pac-Man will speed up the Batmobile. But catalysts, which are enzymes, they do speed up reactions. They make them happen faster, even though they could take place anyway. How do they do that? Well, they lower the activation energy, which is just a fancy way of saying they lower the energy needed to get a reaction started. Look at this diagram. You'll find out how they do that. So if we are looking at a reaction that would take place, there are what we call reactants, and those are the things that are going to do the reaction. And then there are products, which is the stuff you want to get to. Now, without a catalyst, or in other words, without an enzyme, it would take a lot of energy to get those reactants to react with each other. And that's going to take a lot of time to build up that much energy to get those reactions going. So without a catalyst, it takes a lot of energy and a lot of time to get the reaction going. But with a catalyst, look here, you can see that from the reactants to get to the products, it actually is a smaller hump. It takes less energy and, in other words, also less time to get the reaction going and have the reaction. So with an enzyme, which is a catalyst, it will take less time and less energy to get a reaction going. And the way that we could show that on the graph is to show activation energy, which is represented with these red arrows. Here, without a catalyst or without an enzyme, it takes a lot of energy. With the enzyme, it takes a lot less energy. So you could say enzymes increase the rate of reactions by decreasing the energy. And more specifically, that's the activation energy. Next, here's just another kind of fun picture so that you can understand this concept better. So think of these frogs that are in the upper pond as the reactants, the stuff that needs to do the reaction, and the products are going to be what you get after the reaction. Without enzymes, you have a really high activation energy. In other words, it's going to take a really long time for those frogs to jump over to this pool, and this represents what it would be like without an enzyme, because there's a high activation energy barrier when you don't have an enzyme. But when you do have an enzyme, they lower the barrier. They lower the activation energy, and it makes it happen a lot faster. And by it, I mean the reaction. So the reactants can become products much faster with an enzyme because it has a lower activation energy barrier. All right, here's some vocab you're going to need to know, especially during the next couple of videos. So here's how enzymes work. You have 2 substrates, and substrates is just another word for reactants. It's the material that wants to react and get together. And those 2 substrates there could eventually react and become the product, but it's just going to happen a lot faster with a lower activation energy if you have the enzyme. So here are the substrates. They're the reactants that are going to do the reaction. The enzyme is here, and that's a special protein that's going to help that reaction happen faster. And the enzyme has what we call an active site. So, see, there's kind of two empty spots there. Those are the active site, and that's the part of the enzyme where those substrates are going to come in and start doing their reaction. Now, when the reaction is actually taking place, which is shown right here in the middle, you have what's called the enzyme substrate complex. And that is when the two substrates there are actually held in place by the active site of the enzyme, and they're going to be able to do their reaction and form their product pretty quickly compared to if the enzyme wasn't there. Now, that product's going to be released, and then the enzyme, guess what? That looks exactly the same as it did back here. So this enzyme can actually go on and be reused and reused and reused even after the product, which is the chemical substance that's formed as a result of the chemical reaction, is released. Thanks so much for listening, and please let me know if you have any questions so far about enzymes.